please ask questions. Yeah. Let's do this. All right. Come on up, man.
How much of this book is fiction and how much of it is nonfiction?
How much of this book is fiction and how much is nonfiction? So that's a question that I get asked a lot, and it's hard because I mean I'm tempted to say, well, none of it is real, and then like all of it is real, because I think for me anyway, as an author, it's like everything I've ever experienced and everyone I've ever known is still in my head, and when I am writing, it's like all of those memories are in my palette. And have you ever watched like someone paint? And they aren't looking at the palette, they're just sort of going like this, and it's this really improvisational thing. So I'm just reaching for these details and these memories without even really thinking about where they came from. So a character like Park, as I'm writing him, feels brand new. But then if I go back and look at Park, I see that there are elements of so many people that I know who showed up in Park. So he is his own person, but he's also 30 other people, and he's me. And sometimes there will be just a detail in the book that I took, right out of my life. In my first book, Attachments, I had a girl who had a really strong clavicle, and so she was self-conscious in her bathing suit. Clavicle's like this bone right here, I think. And my roommate read that and was like, oh my God, you based that character on me. And I was like, no, just your clavicles. I didn't take you, it's just this bone. So it's just really a blend.
So, follow-up question, is Eleanor based off yourself or like partly based off yourself?
Yeah. Is Eleanor based on me? In a lot of ways, yeah. So definitely their neighborhood is my neighborhood where I grew up in. And their high school is my high school. And their bus is very close to my bus, although my bus was much worse than Eleanor Park's bus, actually. So it's rooted in a real place. And much like Eleanor, I was very poor. I had an abusive stepdad. So there's a lot of pieces to her story that are real to me. But she is a character, and how she reacts and how she falls in love, that's all her. So in a way, when I was writing it, I sometimes felt like I was giving my problems to somebody else. And I felt bad about it, like I just handed this person my problems and now they have to deal with them. Not my current problems, but maybe the problems or pain that I have. A lot of times you're giving characters your emotions, but they are their own character dealing with it. And you're like, it's almost like a lab for you as the author to put these characters in these situations and watch them deal with it. And even if it's a situation that you dealt with yourself, the character is going to deal with it a little bit differently. All right. Is he coming to ask a question?
Yeah, I love that.
Excellent. I love it.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm really honored to be here speaking with you.
Me too. Don't laugh. I'm just being nice. Okay. Have some manners. Okay.
It really is a big honor. Okay.
Okay. So, I hope you're being sincere. You're not just trolling me, but okay.
Okay. So my question is, so how was Park's development as a character? He wears makeup as he progresses through the novel. Is this a direct influence from Eleanor?
Oh, does he wear makeup because of Eleanor?
And
his
other
progression.
Yeah, other progressions.
So, the first editor who wanted to buy this book, that's a great question, loved Park so much, like wanting to marry Park. And I'm sitting in this meeting with her and she's talking about how great he is, he's the perfect boyfriend. She's like, but I just don't see what he sees in Eleanor. Like, what does Park get out of being with Eleanor? And I thought, ooh, you do not get this book. You don't get to touch this book, because if you don't see what Park gets out of Eleanor, I feel like you're missing half of the story. Because Park has, at the beginning of the story, Park has decided he just wants to be invisible. He doesn't want anyone to see him, he doesn't want anyone to notice him. He's trying so hard. I mean, he wears black every day. He sits low in his seat, he sits by himself. He has friends, but he feels like just very down. Like, don't look at me, I'm just trying to get through this. And I think he admires Eleanor's bravery, because he sees her as very brave. Like, she's being herself. Like, he says something to her, I think, about, like, my grandmother would say, you're comfortable in your own skin. You don't care what people think of you. And she's like, I'm terrified of what people think of you. But in his mind, she's like, she's dressing so risky. And especially in the 80s, dressing outside of the norm was really, really unusual. But a lot of Eleanor's brave choices are just choices she has to make. I mean, she dresses the way she does in part because she only has clothes from the thrift shop. And she can't really help the way she looks, so he sees her and thinks she's being brave. A lot of times she's just doing the best. She is brave, but she's doing the best she can with what she has. So I think what Park feels is inspired by her bravery, because he sees that even though she takes abuse from people, she still gets up every day and she's still herself. She's boldly herself, which is something he's never felt comfortable being. And so I think Park's growth in this book, and I'm writing this screenplay now, and I'm realizing, people have asked me before, is it more Eleanor's story than Park's story? And I was like, I don't think so. Now I'm writing the screenplay, it's totally Park's story. It's so much easier to write it from Park's point of view. Because Park is the one who changes. And Park really becomes more comfortable with himself and with the fact that he doesn't know who he is yet. There's a lot he doesn't know about who he wants to be. He wants to experiment with his identity, he wants to try things. Like every day he's doing something really risky with his hair and then he's combing it down before he leaves. And I think being with Eleanor and seeing that she's brave and that she endures is very inspiring for him and makes him, in a way, Park's challenges seem smaller than Eleanor's because he has parents who love him. But it's still a struggle for him. He has a very difficult relationship with his father. He never feels like he measures up. And I think he just feels bolder and more brave and like he can explore who he is and he can try things. I think, especially when you're young, but really your whole life, you're constantly trying things. You're not born knowing who you are. I think we think that. I think we think like, just be real, man, be you. But the truth is we don't even know who that is. That's what we're here to learn. So we get to experiment, we get to try things, we get to put on different hats and see who we are. And I think he feels more emboldened by her. Okay, thank you for your question.
We have a good question on Twitter, so we'll do one Twitter question. Every time drugs or alcohol are mentioned, they're associated with neglect and abuse. Is this your view on this issue?
It really is. I was shocked when this book got called out by a parents group for having drugs and alcohol and for having, because it's the kids who are in trouble or the kids who are not our heroes who are drinking, who are doing drugs. I come from a family that was ruined by drugs. And so I'm not someone who's open to the idea that drugs are okay, that a little pot's not going to hurt you. Because, I've had a parent who's high all the time. It's not even a little bit okay with me. I have lived with drugs and alcohol, and I think that they are destructive in any quantity. So that probably comes out in the book, because it's hard to be romantic about those things when you are a child in a situation like that. And so I'm sure that that's expressed in the book. And I also just kind of wanted to show that we have this idea that every kid is doing the same thing. That every kid is drinking a lot. Every kid is doing, smoking a lot of pot. Every kid is having lots of oral sex. We have these ideas that this teen experience is one experience, and every kid is taking the same risks or making the same choices, and that's really not true. In this room, you are all making a variety of choices every day and having a variety of experiences. And so I wanted to challenge that idea. That's the thing I challenge in Fangirl a lot too. So there's this idea that in college, everybody's already been in love and had sex and understand what it means to be in a relationship, and I promise you that is not true. If you have not experienced that, you are not a late bloomer. I don't even know that late bloomers exist. So I wanted to challenge the idea that everybody's doing the same thing and making the same choices.
My question was, at the end of the book, Eleanor sends a letter to Park eventually after a couple weeks, and on it, it says there were 3 words on it.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to what those 3 words were.
I think I'm going to tell you first. It's a good question. Okay, thank you for asking what the 3 words are. I've been waiting for somebody to ask me that. No, that's not true. So when I wrote the book, I was not intentionally setting it up as a mystery or as some sort of big open ending. In fact, I had thought that I didn't like open endings. I didn't think there was an open ending because I felt like, it's funny, so my husband did not read Eleanor and Park until early this year. And I take a lot of garbage from people about the endings. So if I were to go on Twitter right now there will be someone yelling at me about the ending to Eleanor Park. In fact, if I tweet something and people see that I'm online, they're like, oh, she's there, I'm gonna yell at her. And so it's like, and sometimes it's like, I hate you, mother, blah, 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 words, I hate you. And then they'll be like, I'm sorry, and they're like, oh, Miss Rel, I didn't think you were reading. Anyway, so people get angry about the end of the book. They get angry, they feel like it's too open-ended. So my husband had always taken my side, and then he read the book and he was like, no, this is not okay. This does not count. What have you done to poor Park? And what have you done? Like, I do not feel satisfied as a reader. Anyway, so I thought it was very clear. So we get to the end of the book, and Park gets the postcard, right? And for me, the question was, is Eleanor going to reach out? And I feel like it was very brave of her to reach out, because Eleanor believes that love ends, because in her life, love ends. And love is never enough, and nobody loves her enough to even take care of her. So I felt like it's very brave of her to say, you know what, I'm going to try, and I'm going to reach out, and I'm going to reach out to him. So he smiles, right, if we look at the book. Sometimes people say, are the last words, I hate you? You did not read very carefully. He smiles. Or go away, Park, are the last words. No. He smiles. He says he feels like something winged takes off from his chest, which is an Emily Dickinson nod to hope, which is the thing with feathers. So he feels very hopeful in that moment. So, and I also feel like I kind of set you up to know what the last three words are, right? Like when you say it was just 3 words long, what do you think? Right? It seems very obvious to me that I'm setting you up to think that it is I love you. Okay, so has she ever? I feel like you guys just stopped and started telling each other you loved each other now. Is that what all that talk was about? Okay, so in the book, has she ever told him that she loves him? No, she hasn't. What does she say to Park when she wants to express her feelings and she gets all intense? She says something else to him. What? No. She never says that. No, she says something else. Yeah, up there. She doesn't say she needs him. Yeah. She never says that out loud. That's the thing about Eleanor, and I know this because I'm writing a screenplay, and in a screenplay, everything needs to be said out loud, and that's hard with Eleanor and Park because they almost never say what they're feeling. So there is something, go back and read the book, there is something that she has said to him a number of times. She's never said that to him. She's so tight, you know? She's so tight, yeah. Yes.
I miss you.
She says, I miss you. When she doesn't, yeah. So when Eleanor wants to tell Park she loves him, she says, I miss you. And at one point, I think she says, like, do you still miss me? So maybe she said that, I don't know. That might be something she would put on the postcard. Someone suggested, actually a couple of people have suggested, there's the part in the book where Park is reading Watchmen, and he gets to the last issue, and he wonders what Eleanor thought when she read Nothing Ever Ends. And someone said, is that what she wrote on the postcard? And I was like, oh, damn, that is good. That's really poetic. Nothing ever ends. It's not the Watchmen. It brings it all back. And I was like, no, that's not it. And she was, I wish it was it. I wish I'd thought of that. And this person was like, just say that you thought of that. Like, in your head, just say it's nothing ever ends. And I thought, I can't just do that. Like, it is what it is in my head. Here's the thing, though. I actually don't care what you think it says. Like, you could think it says something else and make an argument, and I'm not going to argue with you. Because I feel like if I wanted it to be for sure, I love you, or go away, Park, I would have written, I love you, go away, Park. So for me, the fact that I left it open means that your vote is kind of as good as mine in this matter, because it's not in the book, and if it's not in the book, it kind of doesn't count. Yeah.
All right, let's take the last question. Although I'd like to point out that Ask Rainbow is now trending on Twitter. We're right after Talk Like a Pirate Day. So, Rainbow. This is as far as it goes. Let's have someone over here. Why don't you come on up? Purple shirt.
All right, let's hear it, ma'am.
So first I wanted to thank you for coming and answering our questions. My name is Sam.
Hi.
And given that this book is partially based on reality and real people and real experiences, do you think that a relationship like Eleanor's and Park's would be able to last?
That's a really great question. Yeah, I think it's possible. I think it is possible that you can fall in love when you were that age and in these circumstances and for it to last. for them in the moment, I mean, I think it's more possible now because it's easier to stay in touch with people, but for them in that moment, I mean, how are they going to talk other than letters? I cannot even describe to you how expensive it was to talk long distance when I was a teenager. It was so expensive that people would wait for weekend nighttime rates. My mom would make all of her long distance calls Saturday at midnight. And she still does that. She has a brother who lives in Boston, and she'll wait till like midnight on a Friday to call him. They'll be like, "You're calling on your cell phone. There's no such thing as long distance." So for them, it would have been impossible. And I also think sometimes people will say, well, why did she leave? Why didn't, you should have ended it with her staying. I just can't even think of a realistic ending for that book that involves her staying. There's just nowhere. She's not going to live with his family. So I don't think they probably stay together in the short term. I feel like that relationship is set up to not do well in the short term. I think they could maybe end up together, maybe. But yeah, in the short term, for them, I just don't see how they are going to make it work. I also think when you fall in love for the first time, you're doing everything for the first time, and you have these intense emotions, and you make mistakes that you don't make in future. You may kind of make big mistakes with that first relationship, and you don't make those mistakes in future relationships because you're like, oh, that was really terrible of me when I did that to that person, or when I criticized that person, or I cheated on that person, or I ignored that person. That was destructive, and I didn't know any better, but the next time I'm not going to do that. So I almost think if you stay with the first person that you're with, you have to endure extremities that future relationships you will have learned from, and you won't put the other person through the garbage. You know what I mean? So I think it's harder to make that relationship last because it's extreme problems and emotions but in that first love experience. Unless you're just mild and zen-like all the time. Hi.
Hi, it's really nice to meet you. I've never met an author before.
Well, it's nice to meet you too.
I was wondering, do you personally think that Eleanor and Park could last in modern times? Like, do you think that they would have been able to cultivate the relationship that they did?
So I can ask that left. Like, could they fall in love now?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes people will say to me, young people will say, oh, God, I wish I had grown up in the 80s. It was so romantic with your mixtapes and your notes and your letters. And I think, well, yeah, it was. But then, like, in 20 years, people are going to be saying, oh, remember Snapchat? Those were the days. So romantic. We would text each other emoji. Back when there were only 50 emoji. Remember that? So I think when you are young and when you fall in love, that is when things are at the most romantic. And I don't think that's going to change. Okay, what I will say, and this might sound, maybe 10 years from now this will sound idiotic, but I do think that there is a theme of longing in the book and a sort of deprivation that we don't have now. Like even with music, so music is a scarcity in the book, and Park has to work so hard to find this unusual music, and he is working full time, and he has it, and it's a resource. And at one point Eleanor is like, how can I pay him back? I can't pay him back for X-Men and the Smiths, like he's giving me all of this. We don't have that scarcity now, so if I think of a song, I'm like, oh, I'm curious about that song. If I have access to a computer, I can hear that song. Also, I can hear it infinite times, which like the first time that I heard the Sundays, Here's Where the Story Ends, I felt like it changed my life, and that I might never hear it again. And I would go to my friend's house who had MTV, and I would stalk MTV just waiting for that song to come on. And I probably only heard it twice in a year, and it was my favorite song. I mean, now I listen to my favorite songs thousands of times in a row, to my husband's dismay. So there is a scarcity in the book that I think is very romantic. And there's a scarcity for each other because they don't have access to each other. But there are still people who don't have phones, who don't have computers. I mean, there are still people who are living like Eleanor is living. Yeah, I think they would still fall in love because, you know, when you were reading the book, I'm sure that you were encountering the 80s stuff and being like, okay, that's how it is now. But you still have feelings of alienation, you still have that magical moment when you click with someone, and I think that's just very possible and happening all around us.
Hi, Hi, thank you so much for this. This is such an honor.
I'm excited to be here.
So like you said, there's so many important themes and so many important life lessons that we can learn from this book. What is one thing that you really wanted readers to take away from it?
So, thank you for your question. I did not write this book hoping anyone would learn anything from it. Because that isn't why I read, usually. Maybe other people do. I don't. I don't pick up a book going, well, I'm going to learn something here. I mean, I want to get lost in a book. That's my reading experience. My goal is to get lost in a book. And so when I was writing it, I thought, I want this to be a book people can get lost in. I want people to feel what these characters are feeling. My goal was, I wanted people to get a stomachache when they were reading about Eleanor and Clark together. That sort of, I just want to do this, like when they're on the bus and it's so tense. And so that was my goal, to make people feel what the characters were feeling. So yes, that was my intent was just to write a good story. But now that I talk about this book a lot, and a lot of young people read this book, I've thought more about it, so I have more hopes now. And that is that, there's this idea that librarians talk about, that young people should be exposed to books that are, some books that are windows and some books that are mirrors. So some books we see ourselves, and it's so important to see yourself in stories. If you don't see yourself in a story, you kind of don't believe that you can have your own adventures. There's an artist on Tumblr named Simone Blocker who has done so much beautiful Eleanor and Clark fan art. And someone asked her, why do you keep doing Eleanor and Clark fan art? And she said that in a way, Eleanor was the first character that made her feel like she could be the star of a story. So Simone's a huge reader, she reads a lot of fantasy, and she was saying that the chubby girl is always the best friend, or the comedy. And so she felt like even in her own fantasies as a child, when she would be playing, she would cast herself as the sidekick. Like, if you're casting yourself as the sidekick in your own story, that sucks. So I think it's important for people to read books where they see themselves, and for there to be more diversity in books, so that more of us get to see ourselves. But then I also, so that's the mirror aspect. But then there's this idea of windows too, that you don't necessarily want to read books that are just about your experience. And I don't think young people want to read books like that. When I was 16, I wasn't like, give me books about Midwesterners who are 16 years old right now. I didn't want that. So there's this idea of like getting to see how other people live. And so, I hope my book makes people feel empathetic. I hope that they feel empathy and compassion toward the characters, especially if the characters are encountering something that they are not themselves encountering. So I get a lot of people tell me they identify with Eleanor. And I'm surprised because most of those people look nothing like her. And I wouldn't look at, this person who seems to be very conventionally attractive and very popular and go, you are Eleanor. And yet that person is identifying with Eleanor and in her life and feeling like her. So that's very powerful for me as an author.
Let's see, young lady right here.
She seemed reluctant. Me? All right. I mean, I had my hand up, but okay.
Hi, I'm Nikki. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I have kind of an odd question. What's the origin of your name?
Oh, the origin of my name. My mother is the origin of my name. She thought it was cool. She was probably wrong. So people think, I've told this story once today, so I have the feeling that you've all heard it, even though none of you were probably there. So my mom gave me this name. She thought it would be cool and unusual. She was inspired by a Jimi Hendrix album called Rainbow Bridge. People think it's my real name, or they think it's my pen name that I chose it. And then when I was a reporter, people always thought that I had selected it. When I worked at Toys R Us, in fact, someone came to my mind and she read my name tag and she went, I think it's so cute the way they give you all these names. I think it was my Toys R Us name. No. But so when people assume that it's a pen name, I think, what do you think I'm trying to accomplish here? Why would I choose Rainbow? I want people to trust me, I want people to respect me. I would like them to call me Rainbow. My mother said that I could change it when I was 18. My mother has no regrets in her life, and my name is the chief of the things she does not regret. And when I was a kid, I was like, please let me change it. I want to be Sarah with an H. And she said, you can change it when you're 18. But then by the time I was 18, can you imagine turning to your friends right now and being like, I would like you to call me Beyonce. Your friends would say, no, Rainbow. I would call you Rainbow. So, I like having an unusual name because people remember it, but I wish that I had a name less silly. All of my siblings have unusual names, but I feel like they got much classier as time went on. So like my sister is Jade. Jade is very classy. She's a jewelry designer, and her name is Jade. And I have a brother named Haven, which I think is kind of cool. So, nothing, yeah. Never a bike license plate with rainbow on it, but everything else with rainbows on it, which I avoided as a child because it kind of just seemed like too much. And also I was like, I'm not that kind of girl. I'm not like rainbows and puppy dog kind of girl. I'm tough. I took my kid to Disney World a couple of years ago. My son was 3 or 4. And he had this, if you've heard the story, if you were in the last session, I'm going to hit all the same jokes. So just pretend you're over it. So he had a pillow pet. He begged for this pillow pet. Do any of you have pillow pets? Good, admit it, yes. Can I tell you that the good thing about pillow pets is that they're a pillow, also a pet, and a pet. So he really wanted to, and that's how he sold it to me, Mom, it's a pillow and a pet. Like, I couldn't argue. You've been looking for something that's both a pillow and a pet. We can get rid of all of our pillows and our pets now because we've got pillow pets. Okay, so he had a bumblebee pillow pet, and we're on the bus. Stay with me, gentlemen, up in the balcony. Stay with me. Yes, you. Thank you. So we're on this bus at Disney World called the Magical Express. I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World, but everything's magical, even the buses. And there was a little girl who also had a pillow pet. And I could tell that my son was dying to talk to her about her pillow pet, but he's very shy. In fact, he'll even say, Mom, I'm going to be shy today. So he's very shy. So I said to her, I really like your pillow pet. It was a purple unicorn. And I said, what is its name? And she said, Rainbow. And I was like, of course it is, because that's what you name Rainbow. If you are 6 years old, you name a stuffed purple unicorn Rainbow. You do not name a human being Rainbow. Ever. So, it is my name. No, right behind you. She's right here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, and I'm Jocelyn, and it's like an honor to have you here. This is really random, but Park's brother, like, he's mentioned like once in the book, and what was his purpose in the book?
He's mentioned so much more than once. Why weren't you paying attention to Park's brother during all of the important plot details? It's Park's brother who notices that Eleanor's family is gone, and it's Park's brother who kind of rats them out because he tells a friend that his brother is dating Eleanor, and that's how her brothers and sisters find out. I mean, he's the little brother, so he's also taller than Park. He looks more like his dad. He's more conventionally masculine than Park. When Park is having his horrible experience with his dad, what does his dad say to him? Your brother learned how to drive the first time I taught him. He's 12. And Park's kind of like, well, why don't you go get him then, or whatever. He says something. So I think for Park, his little brother is, I'm sure his little brother doesn't feel this way, but for Park, his little brother is kind of everything Park isn't for his dad. And his little brother fits in. And he's even worried that he's going to have to start wearing his little brother's cast-offs. So, I mean, if you have a little brother, and we wrote a book about you, we probably would not write a lot about your little brother because you would not want to talk about your little brother. But I feel like he's there. I think he's there as much as Eleanor's siblings. Actually, Park's whole family are more present than Eleanor's siblings because so much of the plot of the book happens at their house.
I believe we have only about 4 minutes left. So we actually have something that we would like to say to you and give you, so I'm going to sneak back.
You guys already gave me jelly beans.
Behind the curtain, so.
Thank you for your questions. This is great. Actually, this session I think went better than the other one. Don't tell those people. Because we didn't let them ask questions. They had to write them on cards. Yeah. So, I mean, we were learning. We learned that this is better. They did get to do Twitter. No, they didn't make it rain. They didn't make it happen.
Okay. right, well, we just wanted to say thank you so much for making a visit to Newton South part of your day and your trip to Boston. So we have a few things for you. We have more jelly beans, because we can never have enough jelly beans. And we have a book that we made for you.
Oh, look at this, thank you.
And every class wrote a page.